What's up, guys? It has been with 2020 election predictions, and today I kind of want to do a focus on the Senate results. Obviously, what has been in the news so much is either Trump lost or the just kind of the presidential race in general, kind of voter fraud claims have kind of been in the news a lot. Or right now, what's in the news a lot is the Georgia uh, Senate runoff races. But I think what's been neglected a lot is kind of just the overall Senate results. I think on the presidential level, we've kind of looked at some of the states, kind of more the swing states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Florida. And I'm definitely going to cover more of these in the future videos. But in this video, I want to focus on the Senate. So we still haven't found out who is going to take control of the Senate. In my past video, I kind of covered in Georgia, and I'll kind of fill in what my predictions are right now. I think David Perdue is going to win by a lean margin, and Kelly Loeffler is going to win by a tilt margin, or maybe even a lean margin. I'm still kind of up in the air about that. This is how I think that the Senate's going to turn out. So 52 to 48. So only kind of a one seat change in the Democrats' direction, which is not what the experts predicted. 538 thought that the Democrats were going to win 51 seats. They were very, very wrong. They were about they're either 1 to 3 seats off. I think they're going to be 3 seats off. We can see that with my prediction. I mean, I was fairly accurate. I got the margins wrong. The only state that I really got wrong was the state of Maine. And this was just one state that I really didn't look at closely enough. And this is a state that everyone else got wrong. So Susan Collins won this state by 9 percentage points. And there was not a single poll since March that had Susan Collins up. What this reflects, I mean, I think this is the prime example of where the polls are wrong. I mean, there were supposedly high quality polls. I mean, polls coming out every week, 2 times a week, 3 times a week. And we saw Sarah Gideon +8, +9. In fact, I didn't even look this up. I neglected to look it up. But I do want to kind of, yeah. All right. So let's see. Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, they had the Democrats having an average of 51.5 seats, which I think 530 after this election has got to have lost a ton of credibility here. To 538's credit, though, they actually did give Susan Collins a better chance than most people. And this is definitely due to her past elections here, and Nate Silver kind of talked about this afterwards. But we can see in every single poll, high quality polls, they have Sarah Gideon up +2, +2, +8, +12. And the actual results, I think it was about 53 for Susan Collins and 44 for Sarah Gideon. So even though that after the Kavanaugh, but after Susan Collins voted yes for Kavanaugh, that there was there was in total there's over $200 million poured into this race, and especially after the Kavanaugh vote, there was a lot of outside money from Democrats poured into Maine to try to unseat her, but all this was unsuccessful, and this is because in every single race that Susan Collins has been in, she's won by a pretty hefty margin against pretty well-funded Democrats. And what Susan Collins did is she kept this race local, and she kind of just used her brand. So, I mean, she voted against Amy Coney Barrett. She just kind of an independent person. I mean, definitely a more more conservative than the average Democrat, but definitely more liberal than the average Republican. And she is a Republican. But she kind of does what she wants. She only had about a 50% voting record with Trump. So, and I think this is a model that both parties can look at and be like, because like Cory Gardner, for example, voted with Trump. I mean, I think over 80% of the time. Susan Collins didn't. And I mean, Susan Collins is definitely more established in Maine, and Cory Gardner won just very narrowly in 2014. But I think this should be kind of a model for both parties that moderation actually works if you're trying to win a seat maybe in territory that isn't necessarily favorable. I also do think this speaks kind of that the incumbency advantage does help because if we go back to North Carolina, a similar thing. All the polls had Cal Cunningham ahead. And then this is one seat where I went back and forth. So before this, I had the seat blue. I really do think that at the end of the day, that the sexing scandal did have a pretty big impact. And we saw that the Senate race and the presidential race tracked pretty closely. We do see that in the South, typically the races are more polarized. So in Maine, where there was actually a split ticket vote, we typically don't see this in other places. But I think this was a shock to a lot of people too. If we do look kind of at the 538, they had Cal Cunningham at a 68% chance to win. But these were the two states that the Republicans kind of needed to win to keep their Senate chances. And they did. One other state where I was wrong, I had this state like a tilt or a lean towards Lindsey Graham, and he won the state by like a 10-point margin, I think. And if we look at where kind of the Democrats poured their money in, I mean, they poured at tons of money. I mean, Jamie Harrison outraised Lindsey Graham by so much, only to lose by 10 points. So I really think, especially after this election, the Democrats just need to kind of reconsider their strategy. Because we can see that in 9 out of the 10 most expensive races, where the Democrats actually spent more than the Republicans, they lost. And obviously the Georgia race has not been settled, but we can also see here that the Democrats are outraising the Republicans by a considerable margin. I mean, 2 to 3 times what the Republicans are raising, but I still do think that the Republicans are going to win. So I think that the Democrats just kind of need to reevaluate how they are spending their money because obviously they are not getting a very good return on their investment when Arizona is kind of the only state. And the Republicans did not spend a ton of money in Arizona because they kind of realized this is a state that's going to be hard to win. One state that was a lot closer, I thought, was Michigan. So I think John James was a very good candidate. I thought this was going to be in the lean margin. I think that's what I had. John James outperformed expectations here. He still lost by about 1.5 points. And I think this is a state that the Republicans wanted to win, especially they just want to kind of John James in the Senate since he's kind of a rising power. Some other states that I think people thought Iowa and Montana were going to be very competitive. I'd always thought that Joni Ernst was going to win this race. This is actually a race I'm predicted that I hammered pretty hard pretty early on when it was actually even. And Teresa Greenfield was actually favored to win this race for a little bit. But I mean, just looking at the 2016 margins, and I mean, this race tracked pretty closely on the presidential and Senate level, which doesn't surprise me very much. In Texas, the Republicans did very, very well. I mean, I don't really think anyone thought it was going to be competitive, but John Cornyn outperformed President Trump by about 4 points here. People thought Alaska was going to be competitive. Maybe it was very, very solid for Dan Sullivan. And Alabama, that was a Republican flip, but no one really was surprised about that. Kansas, some people thought that was going to be close. One thing that was a surprise is Kentucky. I mean, look, Kentucky and Montana and Iowa. So these are all states that Democrats poured millions of dollars in. And obviously, I mean, Mitch McConnell in deep red Kentucky, even though he's kind of the boogeyman on the right and all these other states, like I'm sure if he was on the ballot in Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, maybe some of these more swing states that he would have lost. But Kentucky is deep red, and they respect Mitch McConnell for kind of being, even though that he's not popular writ large, he's doing what his base wants. Colorado was a flip that I think everyone expected. And the Republicans didn't invest a lot of money in here. 2014 was kind of a fluke. That this didn't surprise me. I thought it was going to be the same margin. And Arizona, Mark Kelly was just a, 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 a phenomenal candidate for the Democrats. He was a former astronaut. And Martha McSally was not a great candidate for the Republicans, but Mark Kelly is going to be on the ballot in 2022. I think the governor might run, even though that President Trump has kind of batched Governor Ducey. I think he might run. But I do think that Mark Kelly actually is going to keep this seat in 2022, just because he will be the incumbent and he's a very, very good candidate. So this is kind of my overview of the race. Also, New Mexico was a lot closer than people thought. It was only a 6-point race. The Republicans did a lot better than expectations, and same with Minnesota. But this is kind of my overview of the Senate race. I think kind of one headline. I think 538 actually did this pretty well. Democrats needed a big blue wave to win the Senate, and it looks like they didn't get it. So even though at the end of the day, the Democrats are going to have picked up 1 seat and potentially 3, but I don't think they will. I think that the Republicans can be kind of happy that they kept the Senate majority, especially in Maine and North Carolina. So I really hope that y'all like this video, and I'm going to be kind of doing more overviews of kind of the presidential race and the House election. So let me know what you kind of want me to focus on the utmost, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks, guys.